Welcome to Truth is Here. I'm Mubbina Hashmi. Since 2015, I've uploaded a few videos onto the internet on Truth is Here with the intention of sharing my story with the public. Previously, in previous videos, I've covered a couple of topics, one of which is the Section 60 Pharmacy Order, which is the piece of legislation that the pharmacy professional regulatory bodies rely upon excuse me, to monitor individuals in the profession that they claim that they have concerns about. Excuse me. Please view my other videos to get a clear idea about the Section 60 Pharmacy Order. On top of this, I've also uploaded some of the videos which give you examples of what they have done to me for the last 20 years, whilst they've been, quote-unquote, monitoring me. The purpose of the monitoring is really to acquire some kind of a profile, I believe, to justify in hindsight why they used these tools or processes which they themselves have admitted as being rather extreme. Excuse me. Today I'm hoping to show you examples of information to do with my personal details which have been adjusted courtesy of the Royal Pharmaceutical Society of Great Britain and their sister organisation, the General Pharmaceutical Council. Information that's been adjusted, my personal details such as my marital status, my birthday, my lifestyle, how I choose to stay single, and I've not had a physical sexual relationship as of yet, and despite this I've been very, very badly treated in the sense that I've been forced to say that I have had a sexual encounter or a sexual experience, and therefore I've been forced to have a smear, which I've refused, because smear tests which detect cancer cells in the cervical region of females is only suitable for women who have had a sexual experience in the past, that is to say sexual intercourse, or are currently in a relationship where they are having such an engagement with either a male or even a female. Now, I don't come under any of these categories, and yet the GP practice where I'm registered have contacted me to the point of harassing me, continuously sending me letters. I've spoken to them twice on the phone and they have ignored me and spoken to me as though they can't hear me. I've given them information and they've told me, just come, still come. They are not allowed to do this under the law, which is why the pharmacy professional regulatory bodies have, for example, prevented me from having a lawyer. I'm not allowed to have a lawyer. So when I've attempted to take up my case in the courtrooms of the UK, I've either had a lawyer turn around and say, I'm not allowed to represent you, or I've had to witness them oblige at every request that the opposition have asked them to get me to agree to. And there are other examples on top of these that I've given you. The other example that comes to mind is the example of Mr. Graham Saville Edwards, who is a pharmacist and a barrister. He's refused to go into the hearing with myself. As you can see from one of the videos, you can listen to him. He advises me not to attend. Now, you've got to think to yourself, what on earth is the issue when in this country murderers, paedophiles, rapists, thieves, they are all allowed to have lawyers, and yet myself, I haven't been allowed to have legal representation. there must be another reason, and believe you me, there is, which is why I'm doing these videos, so you can draw the correct conclusions yourselves and join the dots. Basically, don't allow yourself to be led into thinking what the UK government is currently trying to make people think, and that is other than what is actually the case. And that is why they are, well, for the last 20 years, they've been adjusting my information, my personal information, and trying to create a profile which is either criminal or that suggests I am very, very badly compromised at a mental level. That is to say, I have some kind of a serious mental problem, and they're having to monitor me has now finally been justified in hindsight, and their initial concerns, which they've used their original concerns to justify what they've been doing for 20 years, have finally been proven to be true. This can't be the case. This isn't the case. And it's very easy to prove definitively, in fact, that their processes are very harmful and were never justified. Not previously, not now, and definitely not in the future. So I'll just continue with my actual topic for today, which is to present evidences with some explanation as to why I feel I've been treated very badly. Excuse me. In approximately 2016, at the beginning, I contacted HMRC and explained to them that Mr. Graham Southall Edwards, being one of the key people, has been monitoring me and providing information to organisations that would suggest things about myself which are not true, i.e. criminal or something to do with my mental health or something along those lines, something negative, which would make these organisations adjust their behaviour towards me. Now, this incident took place months later, when I had purchased something online and from China. I paid the amount online with my credit card, and excuse me, I then received an invoice from DHL demanding that I pay the sum of £23.34, as you can see there. I was a bit surprised, to be honest, because I remember paying the amount online, whatever the amount was. It was it wasn't VAT, it was the actual amount of the item that I purchased from China. So anyway, I just thought to myself, okay, I'll go and pay it at the local bank here in Bristol, in Fish Ponds. And as you can see, I did. I paid £23.34 in cash and had this confirmed by the cashier with seal from a National Westminster Bank on the 9th of December 2016. I then received another request here, as you can see. Again, this is 13th of December 2016. Again, I've been requested to pay the amount, which, as I've shown you, I have already paid. I rang DHL and explained to them that I've already paid. The person on the other end, customer services, whoever they are, they took on my point and asked me to verify my invoice number to confirm that I had paid. So I was able to do this and ask them to basically make a note of it and not harass me again. Well, it didn't end there, so I then received another letter. Let's just have a look. These have been slightly mixed up here. Let's have a look in order. Yeah, so that one came first, the 13th of December 2016, and then that one came as well through the post to my home address here in Bristol, and they basically requested me to pay the sum again. I got on the phone and try to basically explain myself. I spoke to them at least twice. And then after that, this came through the post in February 2017. I've had to deal with lots of these kinds of incidences since the Royal Society have been monitoring me, the Royal Society and the GPHC. Initially, it was the Royal Pharmaceutical Society of Great Britain, who were previously the profession's regulatory body, but going back a few years, the General Pharmaceutical Council have taken over that role, and the RPSGB now take on a slightly different role. So they are still there in the background, but not in the same way, or so they claim. But on the top of it, the General Pharmaceutical Council are the main body that regulates the profession. I then received this letter, as I've just said. These are an organisation that act on behalf of DHL, and basically they get in touch with individuals who haven't paid the requested amount, and so they've requested £30.84, which is slightly more than what I've previously been asked to pay. The reason being, they are possibly penalising me because, according to them, I haven't paid. Now, this is really outrageous because I've explained to you I have paid, and I have the evidence that I've paid. Just look at the invoice number here, 418943445, which is the same as the one, actually, it's the same one. The account number is the same one. So we are talking about exactly the same thing, and they shouldn't have done that. Now, of course, I'm very upset. I've got in touch with them again, and I've clarified the point again, and they've asked me to email proof that I have paid. So I had to email this organisation control account and scan a copy of this receipt to these people. I did this, it bounced back, or it just didn't go through because it was too big. I was told it's too big. This piece of paper, the amount of information on here can't go through the internet. Okay, I said, what can I do? And they basically told me to send the same scanned copy as a zip file, which I did, and it went through. I then requested that they send me an acknowledgement that they received it, and I never heard back from them, so they've never got back to me. And yet I've been harassed this number of times about this. As I've said, I had already been in touch with HMRC and told them that Mr. Graham Seville Edwards seems to be creating a profile about myself that would suggest that I am dubious, criminal, etc., etc., and I need to be monitored. I hope you can see from this example that there's something badly wrong at their end, and I have done my bit and shouldn't be harassed in this manner. The other thing that I'm very upset about is information that I've put on the internet about Marwa Shabini's death, the headscarved Egyptian pharmacist who was stabbed to death in the courtrooms of Germany in Dresden back in 2009. Dresden is an area in Germany, and Germany is next door to Austria, where Mr. Graham Seville Edwards lives. Interestingly, and of great significance, it was about the same time that she was murdered that myself and Mr. Graham Seville Edwards were basically we were put in contact with one another as potential client and barrister. So in 2009, summertime roughly, Mr. Graham Edwards and I spoke to each other on the phone, and he wished to obtain my medical records. The medical records that have Marwa's details and my details, and later on formed the basis of the headlines in the Guardian newspaper that reported her tragic death in the courtrooms of Germany. Now, he's not commented on the video. He's not allowed himself to see that there are striking similarities. This lady is also a pharmacist, and his client, myself, or potential client as I was back then, was also a pharmacist with a headscarf, and my other friend, who is also a Muslim, was also his client. Now that's very strange. He's not commented upon this, which I think is very shocking. He's told me not to go into the courtrooms, as I've explained. He's also told my friend not to go into the courtrooms. So both of us were told to go back and not to go under any circumstances. And then a lady has also been slaughtered in the courtrooms, a female with my details. That's very shocking. If an investigation was allowed for, it would reveal that the salient descriptors were all matching, and this looked like the work of a serial killer. Because it's a network and not an individual, they've ignored it, and they haven't said anything about it. Just also on top of that, I should mention that in 98 and 99, whilst I was training as to be a pharmacist, doing my pre-registration training in West Wales General Hospital in Carmarthen, I was harassed in such a manner where my colleagues, and in particular the main person responsible, the tutor, a female who was the principal pharmacist, suggested that I was dangerous, and that she didn't allow me to cover the ward that she was covering herself, paediatrics, special care baby unit ward.